Hi everybody. In this video, I'd like to talk to you about some details about style when you're typing. And some of these are differences between level 3 and level 4. And there's some things that you're allowed to do in level 3 that you're not allowed to do anymore in level 4. And also when you leave level 4 and go into composition 1 and 2 or take literature classes or any other future classes, you should avoid these things, even though you were allowed to do them in level 4, in level 3, I mean to say. And there may be some things that you do in my class that when you go into Comp 1, you'll have to change a little bit because as you progress through the levels, the style gets a little bit more strict, a little bit more complicated, a little bit more sophisticated. So in this case, we're going to talk about some things that I know are allowed in level 3, but which you should no longer do in level 4 because they are not correct for the writing style that we use. Okay, so first of all, in our essays, we are no longer allowed to use the word you. So don't write you. Never write you. No you, no you, no you. Never, never, never you. Okay? So what should you write instead of you? Well, usually when you're using you, you're writing something like, you should quit smoking soon as possible. Okay? What can we say to keep that same idea? Because here we don't mean you, as in like one individual. We mean you meaning people, everyone, society, right? Smokers. So we could put something else. Smokers should, okay? Society should, students should, children should. Instead of saying you, mention a specific person or group of people, or just say society or people, to avoid you, okay? Also, we avoid referring to ourselves. We don't want to make an essay that sounds informal and sounds really personal. So we're going to avoid I and we. Sometimes we do need to say I, depending on the topic. For example, if your topic of your essay requires you to talk about yourself, of course use I. You have to use I, right? But usually you want to keep it general and keep just a pure academic voice. Another time that you might find yourself needing to use I is when you talk about an anecdote. I have an uncle who has smoked for 40 years. In this case, you're allowed to use I. Remember, an anecdote is a small story that you use to support your ideas, or you might use it in a hook. Well, you can use I in this case. What about we? Well, you can use we sometimes, really, but it looks bad if you use it over and over again. It's one of those where you should say, like, we should reconsider the laws that exist about buying cigarettes. Instead of saying we, say society or the government or whatever, right? So you're going to try to get that academic voice, that what's called academic tone. Going down to number 3 here. Okay, so here's a big one. You should write the numbers 1 through 9 whenever you write a number. So if you're writing, there are 3 main ways, you're going to write the number 3. But if you're writing 33, you can type the numbers. Okay? It's different with percents. If you want to write a percent, you can type the number instead of writing the full word FIVE. Okay? Remember that though. 1 through 9, the small numbers, write the word for the number. However, sentences starting with a number should always be written as a word. So 33 years ago, okay, you're going to write 33. And my Grammarly is suggesting that I use a dash or a hyphen with that. Okay, back to the thought of academic tone. We're going to avoid any language which is considered colloquial, which is considered something that we would use in a text message or on Facebook, something informal. We want to keep a very formal voice. So obviously you're not going to write stuff like LOL, but some things that you might not realize are informal is writing the word stuff. Stuff like that. We say stuff all the time. I say stuff all the time. Americans say the word stuff a lot. Instead say things, or instead be specific about what stuff you're talking about. Here's something that we say all the time in spoken English. Way too hard, way too far, way too difficult. That is only acceptable in spoken English. In written language, we're going to write very hard, very far, very difficult. We're not going to write way. That's informal language. We're also not going to write cause or BC. We're going to write the full word because. So you get the idea. Anything that seems like chat language or Facebook language, avoid that. I realize it's hard to tell always what is formal and what is informal. Sometimes you know, sometimes you don't know. But when in doubt, just don't use it. You can always ask me first if you're not sure, of course. Okay, don't use abbreviations unless the abbreviation is for a common word. So, I mean, that a word that is commonly abbreviated. Let's see, commonly abbreviated word is what I should say here. So, for example, don't write HK when you mean to say Hong Kong. Okay? Don't write ATEX when you mean to say Austin, Texas. Write Hong Kong completely. Write Austin, Texas completely. It's informal to write HK for Hong Kong. You're going to want to write the full word. Okay? Things that are commonly abbreviated, though, like, for example, USA, you can just write USA. You don't have to write United States of America. Also, what about acronyms for organizations? So, for example, FBI, CIA, NASA. Everybody knows what those are. You don't need to explain that when you type them. However, if you're using an acronym for an organization that's not very well known, use common sense to guess what's well known or what's not well known, right? If you haven't heard of it, it's probably not very well known. Like if you hadn't heard of it before you started researching a topic or whatever. So, for example, the first time in my essay that I write Modern Language Association, I would write the full name and then put in the parentheses. The parentheses are those little C and backwards C shape symbols, MLA. And then next time when I'm in my essay and I write MLA, I can use the acronym because I've already told readers what MLA stands for. But you shouldn't presume that the readers already know. Okay, finally, you're going to avoid starting sentences with the words but or and. Okay, it's just considered bad style. I don't know why. That's just the way it is. Usually you can just cut the and right off. You don't need to say and. For the but, instead of starting with a but, you might start with a however, comma, right? Because but is showing a contrast. You can start with however, you just can't start with but. It's just a rule. So those are some main differences. let me just go back to number one. I'm totally serious. Don't write you. It looks really bad. It looks like you don't know what you're doing if you're writing you. We say you all the time. We use that, what's called the rhetorical you, meaning you doesn't mean you, individual you. You means people. We speak that way. However, we're just not allowed to write that way. It's not considered good academic writing. So no more you. Never again you. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.